banks want easy lending. It's easier to lend on a hotel building that they've already built hundreds of. They're all over the country. We know exactly what it costs, how it's put together, how it's going to perform, versus having to get engineers to look at an old building. Look, here's the thing: it's never easier with an historic building, but it almost always creates better long-term value. So it's sort of acknowledging the fact that we got to do the hard work, and if we do, we're going to be beneficiaries for a long period of time. Any building they would put in that location within 10 years would look dated, and people would look at it and say, that was a mistake. And that's what I talk about when I travel. I go to so many cities, and you see these massive investments that within a decade of them being built, that was a project of its time. Well, historic buildings are timeless. So don't try to overthink it. Work with them, make them better, make them accessible, make them vibrant and viable. And, we're going to be having a conversation about the same building 100 years from now. Well, you and I won't be, but hopefully others will.
Well, so here's the thing I really want to dig into is this corporatocracy that has fed a very easy alleyway to bring in corporate investment, and it's supported by corporate banking, mostly global money, and it's kind of a roadmap that, without really thinking, these outside groups can come in and just pave their way right into and extract the local resources and make it something else, which is why you see apartments all looking the same now and all of that. And that's what they wanted to do down here.
It's amazing. When I first started working in Charleston, you'd have a developer from out of town would come before the Board of Architectural Review, and it's like the board would rise up to let them know, I don't care how you do it, where you come from, but that's not how we do it in Charleston, which is a little bit backwards. But at the same time, there was this protectionist aspect to it. Well, now all the developers come in, they're like, oh, well, we've done 100 of these in Texas, or we've done them all over the Southeast or the Midwest or the Northeast, which is great. And you have developers that, like any developer, they have some great projects. They've even done some great renovation projects. But when you look at what people are primarily trying to do, it's make money. And they have really, really, really good lawyers. I remember talking to the city planning director on a downtown project in Charleston, and he said, Christopher, he goes, that lawyer, he called me and just literally told me exactly why he was going to beat us, how he was going to beat us, and how he could make the zoning ordinance do whatever he needed it to do. He goes, and Christopher, he's right.
Well, this gets to the point of local sovereignty, of municipal sovereignty, and it has nothing to do with stopping economic development. It has everything to do with the sovereignty of citizens who decide where they want to live, where they want to make investments, and have a predictable environment that they can flourish in and have a good quality of life.
Yep.
And that's what's being undermined.
Yeah, I think, look no further than a comprehensive plan.
Yeah.
Right. We never had comprehensive planning in South Carolina till 99?
I was on the board in Newberry County when we had the first one done in 2002.
Yeah, I think the Comprehensive Planning Act was done in 98 or 99, requiring every community to have a comprehensive plan. Well, in Charleston, for example, they just redid the comprehensive plan, and I was running the Preservation Society at the time, and there are so many aspects of the plan that require feedback and input from the community. But it seems like municipalities sort of go through the motions. And it seems like a lot of time the city planners kind of almost have an attitude like, oh, well, you don't know what you need, we'll tell you what you need. But it's also the fact that they're not using these tools the right way. So in Charleston, we redid our comprehensive plan, and one of the things that we fought really hard on is that the State Ports Authority owns almost 70 acres of developable land called Union Pier, which is currently being entitled as we speak. And we said, look, you have got to put forward your vision for that development in the comprehensive plan. It's required by law. If they're going to redevelop that whole area, it has to be consistent with the comprehensive plan. And they said, oh, no. And they wouldn't talk about it. They refused. They didn't do it. And all it says is identified as future planning area. So it has no guardrails, no aspirations. And so, I look at planning as very simple. You have your comprehensive plan, which is our aspirational, what do we want to be as a community and how are we going to get there? And then that filters down into the zoning ordinance and the planning commission board and the zoning board and the board of architectural review, right? They're there to help implement that plan. These communities don't pay attention to these plans. They're not thinking long-term. And so, not having a plan, it leaves more optionality on the table. And all these big developments, the developers come in and say, well, look, we're not going to limit ourselves to a defined plan because the market could change. And we need that flexibility, particularly with big projects, right, that might take a decade plus to build out. They will not commit. So we had a project in Charleston where they said, we want this to be like the future home of Amazon. It's a whole old landfill site, a couple hundred acres, 190 acres. And they said, we want 2 million square feet of office. That's what we want out there. And we looked at it and said, well, that's actually, it's a lot, but it's a good use for that area. And they said, we'll do 4,000, single family units, probably apartments, but it doesn't specify whether it's a condo or an apartment. But if you read the language of the plan, what it said is they're only required to do 10% of the commercial square footage. And they were allowed, if that's the case, then they were allowed to go up to 11,000 and change on the residential units. There are only about 5,000 houses on the peninsula in Charleston. And you were going to double that in one development on the peninsula. It would be chaos. And we were able to fight it and get it down to 7,000 units. But I promise you, we're not going to have 2,000 square feet of commercial. 2 million square feet of commercial. We're not even going to have a million. You're going to have 7,000 houses and like 250,000 square feet of commercial space.
And the reason that's a problem is because then you put the burden on the public and the tax base to put in the infrastructure to support that many people, the widening of the roads, the lighting, the police protection.
Everything's done off TIFs, and so the school district is losing tons of money. Obviously, it'll generate it down the road, but you're sort of robbing Peter to pay Paul in a lot of ways, and TIFs have become, the tax increment financing has become the sort of developer's dream of getting the community to invest in the infrastructure. But yet they're not asking the community to invest in the plan or even have any input into the plan.